You do have a quorum if you want to start
Okay,
going through it.
great. Um, all right. Good morning, everybody. I would like to call to order this Technical Advisory Committee for the Truckee River Flood Management Authority this Friday, May 29th, 2026 at 10 a.m. Um, Marty, could you please let us know if we have a quorum?
Alrighty. So I'm gonna do the roll call. Janelle Thomas,
Here.
Chris Bronzik, yeah. Rob Beadart,
Here.
Ashley's not with Washoe, never mind. Trina Magoon,
Present.
Mary Horvath,
Here.
Donna Noel, Zachary Carter,
Present.
Donnie Gilman, Robert Weimer, Amber Sosa,
Here.
John Simpson,
Here, but alternative.
Amir Amaro,
Here.
Chris Fritzen, Kathy Canfield. All right, you have a quorum?
Thank you, Marty. All right, moving on to item 2, public comment. During this comment period, any person is invited to comment on any topic, regardless of whether it is listed on this agenda or not. Action may not be taken on any matter raised during this public comment period until the agenda item is opened or the matter is specifically listed on a future agenda. Those who wish to comment on an item that has been listed on this agenda may, if they prefer, comment when that item has been opened for consideration by the board and before any action is taken. Comments must be made as described above and is limited to 3 minutes per person. Do we have any public comment?
Seeing none.
I don't see any. All right, we will then close public comment. Moving on to item 3, approval of the TAC agenda for Friday, May 29th, 2026. Are there any edits or comments? Otherwise, I'll take a motion.
To approve. This is Zach.
A second.
See who motioned to approve?
Zach.
Zachary Carter.
With that.
Zach?
That's easy.
Okay. And who's provided the second?
Mary.
Mary. Okay, thank you. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Hearing none, the motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item 4, discussion and possible action to approve the draft minutes of the April 24th, 2026 TAC meeting. And I am open to a motion.
Motion to approve. Trina.
Thank you, Trina. And the second was from Amber, is that right? No.
No, but I will second it.
Okay. All right. A motion from Trina, a second from Amber. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Say nay. Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. All right. Item number 5, announcements by George Robeson.
Yeah, I only have a few announcements. One is we are still moving ahead on work to get our Vista Narrows into permit. And that's the latest back and forth is kind of getting done. So we're going to be giving them, way more information than I could ever expect to give them on all kinds of different things. So I think that we're getting to the point where they don't have many comments left that we can, we've addressed. So it's getting to the point where it's going to have to go into its final approval. So that's where that's at. Another big announcement is that the Wadsworth Bridge is getting ready to be demoed, and that we're expecting that, I believe, on June 12th. So that's the demo portion. They will have to work on the abutment, And then sometime in July, probably later July, they will be putting in the main bridge. And then, of course, the Riverside project is nearing completion, that we help fund all the construction. And that, I believe, they're going to have a ribbon cutting on June 23rd. Then finally, I'm sorry, there's so many things. Um, Finally, we are having that community outreach workshop next Wednesday, and we will be talking about that here some more. But that I just wanted to make sure we get that in twice. That Wednesday at 3 we'll be having a community outreach workshop, and that will be a longer meeting where we can really focus on Rock-McCarran.
Perfect. Mary, you have a question?
Yeah, is that completely online, George? The community workshop?
Yes, it is a Zoom meeting.
Thank you.
Any other questions or announcements? Seeing none, we will move right along to item 6. Consideration and discussion of the scope of services provided or proposed by Kimley Horn and Associates to develop plans for the Reno Tahoe International Airport berm project. George, are you presenting this?
Yeah, and I should have just shared a screen. Do you see
Yes, we
okay.
can see it.
So yeah, so we've been as everyone knows, I'll just keep going here. Kimberly Horn, there we go. This is the a really important area because it protects the airport and the Reno industrial area to the south. So there's a lot of facilities there, from NV Energy to school district to warehouses, factories, churches. So there's a lot of things that would be protected by this berm. Well, actually, yeah, it's a berm right in this area. So we have talked with the airport for quite some while. I know somebody from the airport's on the in the audience too, but we have talked with them for quite some time, and we have tried to create something that would meet FAA safety concerns, and we're also, wanted to get somebody that could coordinate and properly design this thing in light of the extra water that will be coming this way because of the GSR in that levee, and then of course the levee and flood wall work at Tumwa. There's going to be a little bit more water coming through here, and so they need to understand that. So we're looking for a firm that could do all that, and we wanted to get this thing rolling so that when we're doing all these other projects, it work right in with that as well, for permitting, for cost analysis and everything else. So our selection process, and I really haven't talked about this one yet. I did talk about the other two. It sounds a lot like the other two in a lot of ways. Same time, early January, we got out the RFQs. There were 6 statements that came in, just like the other two, the Tumwa and the North Bank levee in Sparks. And then there was a review team. This one had Sparks, Reno, Washoe County, Turfma, and airport people on it. There were 7 members. In scoring, 2 SOQs had a significantly higher average than the other 4, but no consensus on which of the other 2 we should take at that time. So we decided to do an interview between the 2. And after the interviews for each team, one team consistently gave better answers and distinguished themselves for this project, especially on airport experience. If the people, so a lot of you were in the room, you remember some of those answers on airport was just so, they had such good coordination with the airport, and we're currently, even members of the team were doing current projects at the airport. So they got a unanimous vote after all that. And the winning team was a combination of Kimberly, and I apologize for putting that R in there. That's something I always do. Kimley Horn, HDR Crawford, and CME, which is a geotechnical firm, working together, those two, on geotech. And there were a couple other minor firms Members of the team have experienced both downstream Rock-McCarran and upstream GSR for this project. And the SOQ asked for an approach to produce the 30 and 60% design. The scope outlines that the steps and does, in my opinion, at this point, I mean, it took a little bit of back and forth, but follows the intent of what the approach was in the statement of qualifications to get to 30 and 60%. There's reconnaissance, there's alternatives, and there's all the steps of a conventional design in the scope. That scope was handed out in an email for review several weeks ago. I've had very limited comments, really nothing to say on that. If I missed something that was important that you guys had, I'd like to know about that, but I really haven't had any significant comments on their current scope in its current form. So the highlights of this is it's about $1.149 million with contingency built in. The key members, again, sorry for the R there, Kimley Horn, HDR, Crawford with CME are the geotechs. There are other team members. You'll see them here in a subsequent slide. The duration is 2 years on the contract that we're doing with TURFMA. The schedule is 17 months. The key outputs are a geotechnical analysis, basis of design report, and that is the biggest deal here. When you look at this area, this is going to be a wide, gentle sloping berm. And so getting adequate material to build this thing and how it would spread out, and of course, what level it needs to be at, are all the keys to this. There is going to be survey and utility layouts because of the broad area that it covers. There's a pioneer ditch in the area. There's other utilities that go underground there that we have to account for. Also, a big deal with this one that's not in the other ones is coordination with the airport and with the FAA. And that's one of the reasons we chose this team, because of their experience with that. And then there will be a 30% design and then refining to 60% design. After that point, we'll take a look and decide when and how, and do we go into permitting? Do we go to the final design? What will we do? And so all that is in the future. We'll see how it works out up to 60% and then see where to go from there. So this is just a blow up of the area. And this just shows the existing conditions of what happens here. This is the Truckee River way up here. It does inundate this whole area, gets into the airport, and this is just the 100-year flow. It's even worse at 117, which would have been the 97 flood. So you can see how it can get into this area and cause a lot of damage and get around a lot of buildings, get into the industrial area as well. So this is a very important location to get a berm, levee, flood wall, something in there to stop that. And you can see this right here. That's the Pioneer Ditch going through here. So it does get into some of the area and overlap. So there's a lot of considerations here. It is important because of the flooding that would occur. And here's the team that they put together. This was in their actual statement of qualifications because I asked for an approach. That really hasn't changed. Shaker Gorla is the project manager. And there's also really strong hydrology and hydraulics with him and Mitch Blum, who works with HDR and some of these other people. There's really strong geotechnical engineering. That's basically the same team when the Crawford team that is involved with the Rock-McCarran project. So they have a lot of that information already there. They also are working on the Tumwa project. So there's a lot of overlap here And then when you get into the civil design, public outreach, the airfield coordination, their staff, they have a large staff right here in Reno, a lot of experience and current experience with the airport, and the geotechnical engineer that works on locally here, Nick Anderson, with CME, is also working with the airport currently. So this gives you a lot of different looks and things here, but you can see we got Crawford, we have Lumnos, we have CME, Wildscape Engineering. They're going to do some of the environmental work on this, HDR. So that's the team. Lumnos, I believe, is doing a lot of the surveying and that kind of work. Anyways, there's also these geomorphology, stream ecology, permitting, landscape design. So they put together a very robust team of different people that can do different things. The vast majority are local. And most of the people that are even out of local are either doing kind of desk work or they're just right across the hill in California. So, or in Utah, a lot of the airport people are there. So anyways, that's the makeup of the team. This is their schedule. It's a 17 month schedule. The big chunks of this are the geotechnical analysis for that berm, and also the civil improvement plans, the 30 and 60% plans. Some hydraulic modeling is involved as well. They need to tie in with the other projects that are going on, which are Tumwa, GSR, upstream, and then Rock-McCarran downstream. And then, of course, there's a big deal with the FAA coordination and the coordination with the airport. So these are the biggest component, though, is the geotechnical and the civil improvement. And you'll see that in the budget here. The geotechnical accounts for about 40% of the base budget of about $1 million. So you can see that's roughly 40%. The civil improvement plans is another 20%. So the bulk of this is those two tasks. So when I reviewed it, I really focused on those two tasks and honed them down, made sure that they were correct. And it's also a not to exceed, so it's not a lump sum or something. It's whatever it takes up to there, and we do have some contingency here in case we go over in some of these categories. So that's it in a nutshell. I didn't want to spend a lot of time on this because we're going to be doing Rock-McCarran. So I'm just going to open it up for some questions at this point, if anybody has any, and then we can talk about it. All I'm looking for here is any kind of suggestions you may have. Mike, did we have something like what was the language there for possible action?
Yeah, we do. The possible action on this one is to recommend to the board of directors that the scope of services be the basis for a contract with Kimley Horn.
Okay.
So it's basically approval of the scope.
Okay. So any questions? And I can take this off or I can keep it here because of the dollar amount. If it helps, I can take it down.
I don't see any hands raised. Oh, there's Zach. Zach.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think as I stated for previous similarly scoped activities, if there is a discharge of dredge or fill material within waters of the U.S. as a result of the geotechnical boring, just want to make sure that sufficient time is allocated to securing permits for 404 and 401. That's if the project results in discharge of dredge or fill to waters of the U.S., but just want to make sure that's clear.
Yeah, and we'll have to that's actually an open question because we're not getting in the river. We are doing some terracing, and where the terracing starts is really important. So that's one of the things they have to examine early on, and it is in there.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you.
Don't see any other hands raised.
Okay, well, that's
I'll
all I
take a
have.
motion.
This is Zach again, and similar to last round, I'll be abstaining from voting on this item due to our potential review through Section 401. So
Okay.
Thank you, Pat.
thank you.
So does anybody, I mean, it's up to you, Janelle.
Yeah, somebody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to move recommendation of forwarding this project to the board. I don't know if that's the appropriate motion, but the intent is there.
Thank you, Trina.
I think that'll work.
Thanks, Michael.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Amber, a second. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. And abstaining is Zachary Carter.
Correct. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, motion carries.
Do we
All
have to
right.
do any public comments?
Oh, was there any public comment?
I didn't see any, no.
Yeah.
But we have to ask.
You have to ask.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I
Yeah.
could have caught that, Janelle.
Yeah, no worries. I'll call for a public comment. And
Seeing none?
seeing none, we'll close public comment and close the item. All right, so moving on to item 7, presentation and discussion of the Truckee River Rock-McCarran Reach Flood Project 30% Design Report from JUB Engineering, Inc. And I will pass this off to either George or Shane.
All right, I'll share my screen. I think George might start us out, but I'm going to share my screen here.
We can see it.
Okay, I'll start out talking. I'm going to hand this over to Shane pretty quickly here, but what I wanted to do today is give you guys some ideas about what we're going to share next Wednesday, and it also gives an overview of the 30% while we're doing it. The 30%, we handed that out for review quite a while ago because it's so big. And I also recommended to the different people on the committees to just maybe focus on what they're interested in because it's so big. I mean, there's over 200 drawings on that thing. And there's, I think it's over 600 pages long on the basis of design part of it for 30%. So there's a lot to this. So we wanted to just try to boil this down a bit for the public for this meeting and then allow the public to ask questions and make comments on it at the meeting next week. So this would be the presentation, but I wanted to run it by the TAC to see if there were any comments to improve, change things, add things, subtract things, etc. So that's the idea behind this. Could you forward it, please, Shane? So it'll be primarily myself just for the first couple of slides, and then Shane will pick it up from there. And you can see the purpose of the meeting and everything. And this is really the Wednesday meeting. This is a draft of it. This isn't the final, but it is kind of what we're intending to do. Next slide. And this will be the layout of the agenda, the background of the project, which I will go very fast here on those slides because you guys know the background of the project. The community outreach effort, I think a lot of you already know that too. The key design criteria. And then I think the place where I'd probably want to spend some time on is the 30% key design features. And there is a phasing element to this because of the costs of some of the recreational elements. And so we'll get into that when we get there. Then the cost estimate, and then finally going through what's next as we go through the 30% and go to 60. A lot of the comments, like I had some great comments from the city of Reno on tree selections and some other things about the sewers. And I think a lot of that, what we're going to do is carry that into the 60. I don't want to necessarily deal with it at the 30, but those were great comments. And as we go forward to the 60, we're going to have to consult on traffic. We're going to have to consult on the bridge, the Rock Bridge, not the Rock Bridge, the McCarran Bridge with NDOT, because we're trying to open that up a bit because it does have some capacity issues with all the extra water that will be coming down from the other projects because the water's being contained within the river. So anyways, that's the agenda. Let's see here. Oh yeah, go ahead. Thank you. And I think this will be the last slide I'll be dealing with, but just the fact that we went through that alternatives analysis, and then we also went through a second alternatives analysis, which was getting to the preferred park alternative, where we really honed down on two approaches and lots of comments. We're talking, I believe it's approaching 300 or 400 comments at this point. We came down on a combination park where we have a corridor area that's very wide, that has buffering, that has actually a width to it that's wider than the meander width, or uh, the meander opening that's prescribed for this reach. So that's a really positive thing. Typically, you don't see that in urban areas. So that we have that, and then of course, where the detention basin is a park alternative. That's where the ball fields would be for soccer or other flat field sports, and then also a linear park, parking, and there's a number of trails both in the detention basin area and in the corridor area for the river. So anyways, with that, I'm going to hand it over to Shane, let him carry forward.
There was one slide here. I don't know if you want me to cover this in the.
Oh, I'll go ahead and just cover this real quick. So we did once the alternatives analysis came out, and it was done early in 2025. It says 8 alternatives, but it turned into, basic with other sub-alternatives, about 300 plus runs of different types of things and what it would do on the river, hydraulically especially. It really started off with that in-person public meeting at was it McKinley? And then we had several, now call them community outreach workshops, but they were called working groups back then. And we had several of those. And we also had technical advisory committee drop-ins. And honestly, this was really, we thought we'd have 1 or 2 for the alternatives analysis. We ended up having looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 TACs on this, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 working groups on this, because we not only did an alternatives analysis of the area, and it was a lot to go through. We also had to go through and do kind of an analysis of which recreational approach should we take. So we had both those things going on, and it did extend this quite a bit than what we expected. And we also had this was also brought up at a number of board of director meetings as well. So anyways, there was a lot of community outreach because of this. We received a lot of comments, a lot of questions, a lot of back and forth. And it was, in my career, I've never had this much interaction. And I used to work on dams that were controversial. And so that says something, honestly, because I've had this before, but not like this. So the community is very engaged on this, very very wants to know exactly what's going on, both from an environmental side on the river corridor and the protection of that, and on the fact that they want some sort of recreational output from this project as well, in terms of flat fields and conventional recreation. So anyways, that now I'll give it to you, Shane.
Great, thanks, George. So the intent today is to show you what we're presenting, and I don't think give the whole presentation, right? Just from time constraints.
Right,
It will
right.
take a while. So I'm going to burn through these, and feel free to jump in and ask questions or make comments. So we're going to start with going through the key design criteria, really talking about the 117-year flood event and the 3 feet of freeboard, and then how we had to evaluate the downstream impacts and that we couldn't increase the flow more than 2,400 CFS for the whole flood project. And then another design criteria was protecting the recreation complex from larger floods while also attenuating the flows. So we'll go through the key design criteria with the group. And then we're going to talk about the key design features. So what you see there, the river corridor, environmental, transportation, and then we'll go into the nature park and recreation. So jumping into the flood and river corridor, we'll talk about the levees, how they provide the 3 feet of freeboard for that 117-year, which is kind of dictated by the 97 flood. The internal berm is designed to protect the recreation area and also attenuate the flood. We'll go over that. The geomorphology, we'll go over some geomorphology and how it helped establish the geometry, and then how we worked on the optimization, and we have the 100-year max depth there. So starting with just the existing plan so people can see where the river is now, we've got, we're constrained by buildings on the top, buildings on the bottom, farms with direct runoff into the river. And then jumping into the grading plan. So I put this up to show this is what it looks like in the plans, and it's on like the plan sheet, but we actually cut out and blew up this so people can see a little better. So what we've got here is the proposed river, and I'll just kind of walk people through the river and how the existing river remains part of the river system, but it's for greater floods, and then talk a little bit about the terracing that you can see all along the river that will be for riparian habitat and increased natural improvement along the river. So just kind of showing them, the grading plan, and then talking about, so you can actually see the levees here. So north levee, the internal berm levee, you can see it here, and then the south levee. And then I show it on the render as well, so it's a little bit easier to access if you're not used to looking at plans. So you can see the north levee, the internal berm levee that goes right along. There's a path on the top of it, so you can see it because, there's a path right along the top there. And then that south levee, just kind of give everybody a second to understand that that's how we're containing the river there in this 30% design. And then showing where the retention basin is for people. So essentially, the area that's going to attenuate the flood is shown in blue, and the meander belt and the river corridor is really between the north and the internal berm. And so just showing where that retention basin is. And then just showing what the average flow looks like. So this is your low flow, 350 CFS. You can see the blue is where the river is going to be most of the time. And then we show a 5-year event, which really activates the whole river design, the whole channel system. And then the 100-year event, which you can see now actually inundates the retention basin area, the attenuation basin, that dual purpose recreation area. Wanted to just show we made a lot of effort on revetment reduction. So areas in black are areas where revetment is going to be required, but on a lot of these types of projects, you'll see, on some of these types of projects, you'll see riprap all the way down the river and all the way down the levees, and Army Corps likes that. We're not doing that. We've reduced it. We've tried to reduce velocities. We're using natural revetment and woody debris and things like that. So just showing the 30% revetment design, which is and this isn't all riprap. A lot of it is like vegetated riprap and woody debris.
And
So,
Shane, it looks like Trina and George both have questions.
yeah, jump in.
Thanks. So you showed the low flow and then the 5-year and then the 100-year. So in the low flow, the main existing channel is higher than the new blue main channel.
Correct.
Yeah. And then, so this is, great. I understand this. Do you have one that's 50 or 75 that shows what it looks like keeping the park elements dry?
We could definitely add one. It would look a lot like this, except it'd be blue, like end to end.
Yeah.
We could show that.
I think it might be just so people understand that we're protecting those things to that level.
Yeah, no problem. We can have that in.
So for mine, could you go to back to the revetment figure? So one of the things, just as a reminder, and I might have brought this up yesterday, I don't know, but one of the reasons we allow this corridor to be so wide is to lower the velocity, so the type of revetment that we use also avoids heavy riprap. So in some cases, we're using different kinds of bioengineering techniques that don't even get into large-scale riprap, like 3-foot boulder minus that kind of thing. We're trying to avoid that as much as possible because that's actually not natural to the Truckee River in this section. It is upstream, but not here. And so we're trying to widen this out so when the velocities are more spread out and lower. See, up by the bridge, up by the rock bridge, when you're up at that upstream end, you see it's all black there. That's because coming off that bridge, it's unavoidable. You have to have some heavy duty revetment to so that you don't have erosion there. But as you see it gets wider, some of these places you have almost no revetment anywhere because the river is so wide, and as it widens out and uses those side channels, it just doesn't build those high velocities that you often will see in a trained river. So anyways, just want to make sure that you capture that. And that is one of the reasons why this corridor is so wide. Because people would ask, well, why can't we build this in tighter? Well, if you start doing that, then I got to start doing, or you guys have to start designing more expensive revetments, which drives up the cost of the project and also makes it less environmentally friendly. So that's just a point I think should be made as you look at this in revetments.
Great. Looks like we got a bunch of hands. Jump in. You want me to
Go
call
ahead,
Mary? You have a
Trina.
comment?
You're muted.
Sorry, thank you. Talking away to myself over here. George, as you mentioned, people talk about why is it so wide in here? I think one of the other things, and I don't know if you looked at this, Shane, but naturally, upstream when it's steeper, the river is more narrow, but as it starts to get to this point, past the inflection point of where it's widening out, what would the width of the river be if there were no development, right? It might be this wide or maybe even a little bit wider. So you're giving it that natural breathing room as well, which helps with things like the revetment and not needing big rocks and things like that.
Yeah, great point, Trina. We actually did the calculation based on the slopes with the geomorphology, and it's 600 to 800 feet wide is the meander belt width that's required for the river based on the, river mechanics in the area. And we exceed that width for the required meander belt for the whole project, except for right near the bridges on both sides. So great point.
Yeah.
John or Mary?
Mine was just with the public meeting. I know you're talking to a technical advisory group, but revetment might be something that general public might not
Oh,
understand.
great point. What do we
And
call it? Like protection, erosion protection?
Yeah, whatever you want to do, or just define it when you're speaking to the public on something like that. I tend to do that a lot, and Trina likes to get me squared away. So just one of those things that might catch someone in the public offhand.
Great point.
Hey, Shane, just a quick thing, following on what John just said. You might want to add a slide and title it revetment and have 4 pictures, one with heavy riprap, one with a root wad bioengineering, one with like heavy duty willow or something like that, and just say this is for bank and bed stability so it doesn't erode. And
I
if you
think
could show
that's,
like 4 different ways of revetting, that would help lead you into that further discussion of,
that's a
Great
good
idea.
idea.
yeah,
Just like some examples of the revetment.
yeah. Didn't think about that earlier.
Yep, love it. We can add that. Okay. Are we done there? Moving on. We do a series of cross sections here that we're going to show. So we picked one here, one of the large sections. So in the plans, it looks like this, and it's a little bit hard to access. So we pulled this out and made a figure. And this is a figure there that you're familiar with. We show like here is the cross section here, and then over here it correlates. So we have the north levee here, and then the north levee here, and kind of walk them through. Okay, this is the 5-year. Here's the different channels. Here's the main channel. Here's like the flood attenuation area, and here's the 100-year event, like what that looks like, and show them that. Yeah, Trina.
In the same vein of what John was just saying, I don't think an average citizen understands what a cross section is. So maybe walk them through, like you're standing on the North Bank levee in Sparks, and you walk down the bank, and then you walk into the river, and you kind of walk through like this. It might give them a better idea of what a cross section is, because I'm not sure people understand that. It's not intuitive, I don't think.
I like that. I'll try to explain it like that in the meeting. And this, I think this will help. We're also going to show the video. I think you've all seen it.
Yeah.
Where we do the YouTube video where it comes down the thing, and we can watch it here if you want. I have it up, but we don't have to. So that'll also help them. Okay, here's the cross section. We're going to go across the render so people can see what it looks like as they go across. Yeah, George.
Yeah, I was just wondering, maybe you put this slide first and then do your, at the end, say, you know, when we're doing design and construction, it looks like this kind of at the end, rather than
Good
start
idea.
off with that and they're like, what the heck is that?
Put
You
the
know,
video, put this render and video first.
yeah, then show them, but in, you know, in design, this is what we do so that a constructor knows exactly where they stand and all that stuff.
Okay, got that.
I think if you switch it, you'll probably do quite well with that instead of going with that really cryptic cross section first.
Okay. John?
On the previous slide, similar to what Trina had mentioned before, putting in like a 50-year or 75-year on there with the water surface elevation. I know you have the 5 and the 100, but maybe label each one of those as in there, but showing that the park is like not flooded in those situations, or like the 50-year or 100-year, so that they know that as well.
Okay.
Just a recommendation. Might not be needed, but just a thought.
Yeah, I like it. I'm trying to think. Right now, we're kind of working with, as we're the 30%, we're kind of working with this. Hey, we're going to make it in between 50 and 75, and we're closer to the 75 than the 50 for like what we're protecting. We don't have it dialed in yet, so I worry about giving someone like, hey, here's the line.
You could put a range in there, just like a
Little band or something.
band, yeah.
We'll try and put a line in there. I'll try and put a
Right.
line in there and say this represents, you know, the flood protection level.
If it's going to make it more confusing, then maybe not. I just thought, I mean, ultimately there will be some interest in the fact, like, is the park going to get flooded in these events, or what is it going to look like? But you can probably speak to that. If it's going to make it confusing on the slide, I want it that bad.
It would just show a line, below this 100, but close to overtopping, So yeah, we'll look at adding that. I think it could be a good add.
Well, would it be that high? Because it's further up that it comes in. Maybe it is as you get to there.
The spillway is about here. You can see
Okay.
the cursor. And so
Yep.
the line would be a few feet below that, and it starts spilling in. So, all right. So then that's kind of the
Do you
Go ahead.
show where the notch is on that?
You can see them. Let's see if I can kind of see them. We don't show the notches, but they're right here. And you can see it in the grading, and right here, there's 2 notches actually, the way that we fill it up. So they're here and here.
Okay.
You want me to circle them for them or something, or is that too much detail for this crew?
Yeah, I don't know if the general public are interested, but
Yeah, there's notch 1 and there's a notch 2 over here. Okay, so that's kind of the end of the river corridor and flood design, and then I jump into the environmental design portion.
I don't know if you heard me before, but I have a question about the McCarran Bridge. Are you guys covering that at all in this presentation?
Not. Tell me what you want to.
Well, I just wanted to know what the opening was going to look like, or I know you guys are still working on dialing it in, but
Yeah, like how much freeboard or something like that.
just what the cross section is going to look like compared to existing conditions.
Yeah, we have that, and we have a new sidewalk and things. I wonder if that's too much detail for this crew. But if you want that, let me know. I think we could add like how we're adding the connection underneath the bridge. One of the issues there is that NDOW is still, we're talking about the bats underneath the McCarran Bridge, and it's still in discussions, and we're pretty sure we're going to be able to do it. They're like, yeah, we can do it, but with mitigation and with different gates, maybe at certain seasons and things like that. So we're not quite there yet, maybe for the public.
Yeah, I'm sure the public is going to be very interested in the bats because there were like 50 comments about the bats, but I'm really interested in them, what the bridge opening is going to look like. And also, and not this for public, the public presentation, are you still, is McCarran still an internal boundary condition in your modeling?
Say again?
Is McCarran still treated as an internal boundary condition in your hydraulic model?
Yeah.
Okay. Because it wasn't that clear in the report, but I just was interested in the cross section.
Okay.
But I don't think the public is going to be interested in that, probably. I don't know.
So we talk about on this as we start the environmental design, we talk about the environmental scan and how we had an environmental team come in and make initial environmental recommendations. And then we talk about how the Mexican Brazilian free-tailed bat is a major consideration underneath McCarran Bridge, and because of that colony. And we're going to talk about the terrace zones, which is what this image is, and show how the 0 to 1 is in blue, the 1 to 3 is the majority of the riparian zone inundates in the 1 to 3, and then that 3 to 5 pokes out a little bit, and then really kind of going all the way to that 75 year, where the 75 plus is what we have listed here, but that's where we get that retention basin and recreation area where that activates as a dual purpose. And then the monitoring and success criteria, we've started with figuring out what the success will look like in the future and how we're going to monitor that. And we have a whole, write-up about that. George, what do you got?
Well, I just wanted to say, following up on what John Simpson said, this is a great place to just mention that you can see that the 75 does not get, this area here, the retention basin recreational area, does not get activated till around the 75 year. So all these are getting activated sooner, and it's interesting how they activate because they're helping to lower the velocity and the water level against the levees, which actually reduces the cost of the levees, um, which is important as well. But this part doesn't activate until around 75 years, which that takes the top off the flooding, which also helps these levees. But it also protects this all the way up to the 75 year. So it's a place where you can talk about that point more from a planar look, rather than a cross-sectional look. So you can emphasize that or re-emphasize that point here as well with the retention basin and recreational area.
Yeah, I love it. I'll try to do that. And if I miss it, George, you can help jump in and help me reiterate it, but I'll definitely bring it up and say you can really see that differentiation.
Yep, yep.
Okay, so then we have a monitoring success criteria, and then I jump into some of the environmental designs in the river corridor. And here's where we go over the meander belt, that the river corridor, we have a really unique situation to be able in an urban area to have enough room to create the true meander belt of the 600 to 800 feet, to allow for that living river, which is a big deal, right in an urban area. And then talk about the alternative revetment types, which this is interesting because we're adding that slide above, but it's really reduced riprap, vegetated riprap, geocells, woody debris, and stream restoration techniques. And then habitat creation, there's going to be significant improvements to the riparian zone. Right now, it's a degraded river section with lots of rock, and it's just, there's no overbanks, and we're going to make it a really nice environmental system. We have 2 backwater channels that have been designed in that are going to support rearing habitat for aquatic species and planned natural pool and riffle sequences. So we're going to turn it into like a real natural river system, from what it is now, which is a degraded system. And then the terraces, we have 4 unique terrace zones for vegetated communities, and that's kind of shown below. You can see there's the stream channel, then the wetland bench, the riparian bench, and the uplands. And we have different species plantings for each one of those terrace zones in the plan that we're working on. And then we also have a preservation of tree stands. There's 4 designated preserved areas where we're preserving the existing tree stands for the project. And they're pretty significant. They're large. Actually, that might be something that I could put a slide on where those are. You think that would be a good addition, where the tree stands are?
I think that that's a good addition because, like I told you, with the community outreach workshop, that's a longer format, and I think you're in the low 30s or something like that right now on slides. It's fine to have a few more slides.
We're up to like 40 something now.
Oh, you're up to 40 something, but still,
Yeah.
I mean, I've run 55, 60 slides in those old working groups. So,
okay. More environmental design. We're going to talk about low impact design, reducing runoff, increasing infiltration. All the runoff is going to be enclosed within the internal berm. There's no general irrigation runoff and small storm runoff that will be able to run off to the river because of the way that the internal berm captures everything for the fields, and that'll reduce the pollutants that reach the river. Dark sky lighting. We're using treated effluent to do the watering here, so secondary water or gray water, and we're doing some strategic landscaping in the park area to try and reduce the heat island or urban heat island effects. So I was just going to throw some of these kind of efforts that we're making on the environmental design side. And that's it for environmental. I'll add a slide there, I think, for the preserved tree stands. And then we go into transportation. So the roads and parking we've had. Oh, Zach, you got something?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Just a quick question.
Yeah.
For the restoration revegetation plan, is there some sort of representative condition or sites that y'all are referencing to inform the plant selection that can be emphasized during this presentation? Or how is that revegetation plan being developed so it makes sense with the rest of the river
We
system?
have a whole report on it. Like it's a huge thing. Is there something you would want to boil it down to? Like,
Yeah, I
there-
mean, sorry, go ahead.
there's a whole environmental group that's like doing this big thing. They have species lists and they've been working with local nurseries and they've been talking about, what makes sense in the different areas and doing a lot of research. And we have these tables that like, okay, here's the ones at 30% design that we're thinking are going to go here. And that's how we did the cost tables based on spacing. That's how we put it into the cost estimate. So there's been a ton of work done on it.
Hey,
Yeah,
Shane and Zach, this is Danielle.
hi, Danielle.
If I could just jump in really quick. As far as reference sites, we also have used information from the Vista Narrows project designs. We have, as Shane mentioned, a revegetation report and a weed abatement plan for that project. And as well, we used the restoration projects that were completed in cooperation with the Nature Conservancy and other folks in the downstream reach. We used those as references as well. So the plant selection and spacing and monitoring and weed control is all going to be informed by that, as well as the work that the JUB team has done with the environmental scan and other surveys.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like a lot of work has gone into that development of that revegetation plan. I was mostly just thinking, yeah, emphasizing that that effort that's been put forth, that successful restoration projects are being referenced to inform revegetation efforts to make a stronger case for plant selection and the strength of the revegetation efforts. Just a suggestion, though.
Oh, it's a good suggestion.
Yeah, I'll try and mention that, Zach, in the report there.
Yeah, and that, by the way, that's something that was in the report big time. It's in the environmental scan. That's one of the longer sections of the appendices. And so this is something that is being done. So it should be touted. It should be
Maybe I'll put a
known.
bullet point on this one right here.
Yeah.
So I'm going to add a bullet to on environmental reference projects.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Good comment, Zach, as usual. All right. Roads and parking. So essentially we have a preliminary layout with all the internal roads and the parking, and the site will be able to access, or the access will be with 2 proposed roads. It will also have 2 additional emergency access points, so 4 ingress egress points. Here's the transportation layout. That thing got moved a little bit. Essentially, these 2 are the public access spots, and then we've got the emergency access, one on Rock and one on McCarran. And then you can kind of just see the different parking. We've listed the total parking spots here, 1,234 total parking spots in the design. Not a lot to say about that. Maybe just let people look at it for a second. And then that's all I'm doing for transportation. What's happening now is with the 30% design, we have to turn that into the city of Reno, and the city of Reno, we're going to work with them on what requirements from a traffic study perspective they're going to see as we move forward. And so, and then with that traffic study requirements and things like that, we'll move forward and try to finalize these transportation plans. Go ahead, Mary.
So yeah, they've been bugging me. The Public Works Department's been bugging me for a meeting, and this is the time to do it. So I can send you a list of who will want to be included in that, but we'll probably include some people from our department as well.
Great.
For
We're ready.
the sewer issues and also reclaim. Sorry, my husband is making a smoothie. If you want to use reclaim, if you're planning on using reclaimed water.
Yeah, we're hoping to.
So yeah, that'll be good to have a meeting shortly.
Yeah, let's do it. We're ready.
Okay, thanks.
Then we jump into the nature park and recreation complex, and I think a lot of people are really interested in this, you know, and so we'll just start talking about how the public outreach was performed, requesting input regarding two park concepts, the nature park and the recreation complex. And then a combination of the parks was selected where we're doing both a nature park and a recreation area. And really the theming for this was themes that celebrate the Truckee River's natural processes, history, and community value. And then put up the render and talk about some things that are happening here. So it's kind of starting from the riverside, we've got 3 river access points here. Up here, this is the Tahoe Pyramid Trail. And that ties into, it'll be on the North Levee. And then starting on the left here, we've got this iconic park, which we'll show some pictures of this. We've got the 8, 9, 10, 11 fields here for the design, with bus parking for tournament style parking. We've got a little maintenance yard here for, the maintenance, the linear park, which is going to be a pretty kind of the headlining park of the area. And then we've got the fields. So just kind of go over that with people. Go ahead, Trina.
So I think when you talk about the North Levee berm, there are also access points to walking trails on the north side. I mean,
There are.
people
Yep.
on that side might want to know what those brown lines are and that you can access this from both sides. And I assume if you're on that berm, you're just parking somewhere in the industrial area.
Well, I think there's 2 parks that you'll be able to park at the Rock Park and at the what's the name of that? At this park here.
Glendale.
Okay.
The Glendale Park. Thank you, George. The Glendale Park or the Rock Park for that. And then we'll also, with the McCarran Bridge, we're going to connect. Like if you wanted to get onto the trail, you could park here, go down, cross the river, and get on it on to the other side of the river as well.
Yeah, I think without explaining that a little bit more, this looks like it's really focusing on the recreation element, which is great, but also pointing out that nature area is accessible from all of these points.
I think we could even make some call outs that show walking trails, nature area, just to kind of stress that a little bit. Just writing that down. Great comment, Trina. Rob?
Just one question. Is the trail on top of the North Levee, is that going to be a complete rebuild on that?
It will.
Trying.
Yeah.
So that might be something you want to bring up to the public so that,
yes,
so they'll probably ask that question, especially on the, like Trina said, the entry points, which is talking about the 2 parks. So.
Thank you. I'll bring that up. North Levee Trail. I'm going to have to make some notes for some of these slides to make sure I remember these things. And if you're at the presentation and I forget them, feel free to jump in.
Shane, if that question comes up, I don't think you have to really worry too much about
Okay.
it.
All right. Thanks, Rob. So then we go into, on this, we're going to go into a couple of the pictures. So this is kind of a representation of the iconic park. You can see on the right, the area that this is planned for, and preliminary, selected this particular iconic play structure. And then this is the linear adventure park. You can see on the right, kind of the reference section against the river, kind of having this kind of flowy river park. And these are just renders, 30% renders. We have the Mill Street levee here, and this is kind of a render of what it would probably look like if you're going down Mill. Right now you look across and there's some flat fields, and this is what it will look like. Maybe a little in the renders, the folks got a little excited and put some trees on my levee, and I wasn't excited about that, but I don't think I'll say anything in the public meeting about that. Go ahead, Rob.
Hey, on the park structures, are we talking about ADA park structures for Reno or just?
I don't know if these ones are ADA. I don't know if let's see, is
Because
David
that
David
may
on the
become a
call?
hot topic, so I just don't know what Reno has.
David, are these ADA play structures?
Shane, the 2 and 5 play structure, which is the smaller one on the right, and then the 5 and 12, these are age ranges. Play structure, which is the lower one on the left, they are ADA accessible. If you look at the iconic Hydra Tower in the back, if you see that black kind of walkway, that's a rigid rubberized walkway there that is also ADA accessible. And actually in this image, if you see that little boy with the red and white shirt in the central pylon there and go directly down, you'll see a wheelchair that is empty because the child in that wheelchair is playing on the equipment there in the 5 to 12. And so while getting up into that main tower is not ADA accessible, the entirety of the rest of the play equipment in here is ADA accessible.
Thanks, David.
Again, that's just probably going to be a question that they're just don't, you don't have to bring it up.
We'll be ready. Thank you, sir.
Ready for it. Linear Park, the Mill Street levee there. All right, and this is where we get into some of the potential phasing that we were talking about. So when we were looking at it and we did the whole park, the costs were coming in very high. So we talked about potentially phasing out some of these things. You can see there's a lot of ways to do this phasing, and this is just kind of our first cut at it. But really the main thing that we did was took out 3 of those parks and kept, or fields and kept, and the iconic park, which is a fairly expensive, nice park. And then kept 8 fields and really kept the transportation in place and parking in a phase that could be changed. You know, we could phase the parking more, take out a couple of the parking lots if that made sense. But for the cost that we have, the parking is all in. So we go into, this is the base. Everything in green is included, so we definitely, all the nature park and the nature creation, the nature trails, the linear park, the championship fields, and the parking. We keep the maintenance yard and portions of the entry monumentation, but not the iconic monumentation, which was a relatively high price tag for some of those beautiful signs. Yeah, go ahead, Trina.
Just a question about the phasing. What is the, are we going to talk about that a little bit more? Like, what's the plan there?
We
Is
are,
it
well,
to,
yeah, we have the costs, and we're going into what each phase is right here. And
Okay.
so if that will answer the questions, but
Yeah, you might want to just wait for a few slides and see. Yeah.
so that's the recreational base. And so these are the things that are included in that recreational base. We've got, the fields, some of the restrooms. That restroom might be a little misleading because we're not going to have like a full structure like that. It's just going to be the bathrooms. You might want to change that one out. Entry monumentation, the river access, the parks, that's what's in the base. And then we go into the supplemental recreation, which is, the lighting, couple extra fields, some of the berm aesthetics, the iconic monumentation out on this corner, which is going to be that like big, beautiful sign, and some of the berm aesthetics, that iconic park. And here's some pictures of the things that would kind of be left out, the lighting itself, this big designed sign, this park, some of the berm aesthetics potentially, and some of the fancy wayfinding signs. So then we go into this cost estimate of, oh yeah, go ahead, Trina.
Sorry, that was my hand up from before. Keep going. Thank you.
Yeah. So in the cost estimate, we really show that the base cost of the whole project, including the recreation, so you can see that recreation base in there is that 12,582,000, and then the rest of the project, the civil site work and the transportation costs, we kind of just broke out a few of those items for the public here with a $92 million price tag. And then when we add the supplemental, it really adds 9.7 million onto the recreation costs to get us to like 1.4 or 104 million on those costs. So I think there might be a lot of discussion about what is should and shouldn't be part of the base and what's supplemental, and we're totally open to that. We took a stab at it. I feel like other people might have strong opinions, and so we're fine with whatever people want, working with TURFMA, and we'll let TURFMA guide that, and whatever they tell us to do, we'll do. So that's it that we have for, that's really it that we have for the recreation side of things. And then we really are, that's pretty much, we're done here. We've got, we talk about, wrapping up in the end, the 30% design plans. We had 205 total sheets, and it kind of lays out what they are there. And then we just go into the progress and next steps. So we're done with the 30% design. The next step, after we get comments on this 30% design, we're going to implement it into the 60% design as we move forward. And so we're kind of finishing up 30% and headed on to 60% design. And we're going to try and use the 30% design comments to really guide us as we do that 60% design. And then we just go into questions. Yeah, Trina.
So back to that, looks like $11.6 million between your base plan and the supplemental. George, what's the sort of thought process behind that? Because I thought originally, I'm trying to remember what the original park elements was presented to the board, the cost. Is this above that? Is that what you're on mute?
This gets into more policy in that at the board meeting, that there was the idea is that back then the estimate was 87 million, I believe. And I had recreation in there at a certain level. And I said that at that time that if it really got out of hand in terms of costs, that we could phase this, we could use outside sourcing, if people want extra things at that point. But we do want to have a certain level of recreation as part of the detention basin, and is in the corridor as well. There's a lot of trails in the corridor. That one slide a few back with the green trails really like illustrates how many trails there are. That one, yeah. I mean, there's a lot that's in the base. And I mean, I don't think there's any more in the supplemental, but it just shows all the major trails that are being thought about. And besides the main trails, which are on the two levees and the berm. So anyways, go back. So the idea there at that last meeting, or the key meeting where they allowed us to go to the 30, is that, it's about 87 million right now. If it gets too much, we can always phase, we can always ask for outside crowdfunding, something like that. And so when it got to be, 104 million, and looking at my cash flow in the strategic plan, I needed to stay around, 90 to 95 million. So that's why we're phasing what we're phasing.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
So, if there's any, if you can think of anything that we've missed here that people would want to see on a 30% design from a public perspective, now's the time to have us put it in. This meeting is next Wednesday afternoon, and we'll make the changes that were discussed here today as well. And I think we anticipate quite a bit of public input and feedback on this and good participation. So I'm excited to see. That's
I'll
all I
open
have,
it
George.
to public comment, or if anybody else has comments. Ellen, your hand is raised. You'll have to unmute yourself.
I asked them to unmute, but they're still muted.
Okay,
There
start again. I'm
There
sorry.
he
This is
goes.
actually
There you
Roger
go.
Jacobson. I'm on Ellen's machine. A couple of quick things that the general public might like to know. One is the areas between the natural area and the field areas. Another one would be that can flood control money be used for the ball fields? You're talking about the various stages of money, which I think, George, is a really good way to present that. But to make sure it's stated very clearly that a large amount of this money will be coming from the flood control money. And then the other one, on a couple of the slides, there's a confusion. You list, like on the south levee, at some places is listed as a berm. So there's a confusion between listing it as a berm sometimes and as a levee other times. And so I think, again, just clearing that up, that the levees go around the outside, the berm goes up the middle. The other one that I talked to one of my people that's involved with bats, they were wondering if it would be possible to put a culvert underneath McCarran so you'd keep people away from where the bats are, which is underneath the actual bridge. So I think those would be a couple of things that maybe a few people might be interested in knowing.
Great comments. Thanks, Roger. With regard to the bats, right now we're in talks with Nevada Department of Wildlife, and we're going to let them help us figure out how to mitigate that. A tunnel, I mean, I don't think it's off the table. It's definitely a possibility. I don't think they were thinking that in terms of how far they were thinking, but we'll see what they come up with.
Any other public comments?
Are the bats already there for the season? I'm just curious.
I don't know. I was there like 3 weeks ago and they were not, I think.
Okay. Well, seeing no other comments.
Do we need to make a motion to accept this presentation, or is it okay to simply move on?
I think all I was looking for was comments like what were given, not an acceptance or, a move forward or anything like that.
If
Will
George,
you be can ask a question? Will you be asking the board on their next board meeting, which is the week after next, right? To approve the 30%?
Yeah, and move to the 60, and they can actually add things that they want to make sure is in the 60 at that point.
There is a
Gotcha.
possible action in the agenda.
Yeah,
If
the
I may-
possible action in my mind was just
Yeah.
to give comments about this, which people have done.
this is Mike. We are agendized to recommend to the board that they accept the 30 as the basis for moving to the 60% design. I think the board can certainly take that action without the recommendation.
I'll leave that up to you, Janelle. You can either, you guys have had that out for about a month. There have been some comments given, some verbal ones, as well as some pretty extensive ones by the city of Reno. We're taking all those to the 60 for the most part. And they're good comments, by the way. But anyways, that's all I've received from the TAC.
Okay.
And so if you guys feel comfortable doing that at this point, after having that out in your hands for about 3 weeks and this presentation, I'm happy to, see that. But that's just where I am with that.
If somebody is compelled to make a motion to advance the 30% design to the 60% design or make that recommendation to the board, I would be happy to accept that motion.
I'll motion to accept the 30% plans for design and advance it to the 60% design.
With the comments we've made included, say.
Right, and the fact that there'll be more comments coming from the city, at least.
Yeah. Anybody want to second it?
I'll second that, Janelle.
Thank you, Rob. All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any
Aye.
opposed, say nay. Any abstentions?
Since this isn't a funding recommendation, I don't feel like I need to abstain. Thank you for asking.
Okay, absolutely. All right. So we will close item 7 and move on to item 8, which is review and discussion of the Truckee River Flood Management Authority draft Board of Directors meeting agenda for Friday, June 11th or June 12th, sorry. And this is informational by Mr. Wolves.
Yes, thank you. So aside from the board's usual monthly business, they'll be hearing basically the meeting that was heard today. They will address the excuse me. They will address the contract with Kimley Horn, and they will also be addressing this plan and giving direction to proceed to the 60% design. So other than that, at this moment, we don't have any additional business.
Very well. Thank you. All right, moving on to item 9, committee member comments, requests, and future agenda items. Hearing none, we will move along. So item 10, which is our second public comment. During this comment period, any person is invited to speak on any topic that is not listed as an action item on this agenda. Action may not be taken on any matter raised during this public comment period until the matter is specifically listed on a future agenda. Comment must be made as described above and is limited to 3 minutes per person. And I don't see any hands raised. Okay, so moving on to item 11, adjournment, and we will officially adjourn at 11:23 a.m. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend.
Thanks.